Cybersecurity is an ever-growing field, and representation within it matters more than ever. We here at the Other Side of the Firewall podcast strive to highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, people of color who have made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall into those senior and C-suite level positions. Aside from interviews of IT professionals just like you, our crew will have fun discussing the latest and greatest news, measures to protect yourself from bad actors on the interwebs, and sprinkle in some games entertainment as well. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the show.
Happy belated Thanksgiving, everybody. My name is Ryan Williams, and today, as always, I'm joined by Shannon Thomas
What's up? What's up?
and Levon Maynard.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, today's show we'll discuss a computerworld.com article we found topical to the platform, fallout from the new rollout of Amazon Sidewalk on all your Amazon Edge electronics, the recent spike in ransomware this year and how it's impacted Capcom for at least 4 years. And last but not least, we would like to introduce a new segment called Patch Notes. In this segment, we will discuss the latest and greatest security bugs in the news and if and how they've been patched to keep you safe. This week, I saw two interesting ones, one from Tesla and another from Facebook Messenger that I feel are pretty important to talk about this week. But before all that, how's everybody's Thanksgiving?
Man, Thanksgiving was pretty good, man. Can't complain. It was a small affair, with everything going on in the world with COVID. It was a small affair. We didn't, make a lot of food or anything like that. So our leftovers are almost gone. You got Thanksgiving, you have some later on in the night, and Thanksgiving you have some more, and then the next day it ends up being some lunch. So we're almost done with our leftovers. But it was a good time. Spend time with the family, and that's pretty much all you can ask for, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a pretty good one as well. I had a chance to hang out with the wife during Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, due to COVID, wasn't able to we normally fly out my mother to visit us during the holidays. But this time it was a little concerning, she's kind of in that risk group. And I just wanted to make sure to look out for her safety and make sure that she stays healthy. But besides that, we had a great Thanksgiving. We actually we decided to both save the effort as well as support some local restaurants because we know it's kind of hard. A lot of these restaurants out here trying to make do with the times. So we went ahead and bought a big like Thanksgiving meal from one of the local restaurants here, kind of support them and as well as save the hassle of cooking. so it came out really good. It was delicious.
All right, that's what's up. I didn't do much myself. Again, I'm away from home, so we celebrated Thanksgiving a whole month early. So I actually had all the trimmings and fixings, all that good stuff. My wonderful wife made me, so I'm good. You know what I mean? For two Thanksgivings, I'm gonna gain that weight. I don't need to.
That's right.
So a couple patches before we get to topic one. We're going to try to not overproduce this show, so you'll notice there'll be a couple rough edges, but I feel it'd be better for it to be more natural than for me to chop everybody up and make it sound like RoboCop in post-production, because I'm not a good producer. So as always, this episode will go out to the patrons immediately as soon as I get done doing what little production I'm going to do, 7 days early, completely ad-free. And we'll make sure to leave out the Patreon ads from the Patreon feed this time, because you're already paying, you'll need to hear that. So without further ado, topic one. Shannon was able to share this interesting article with me called The State of Ethnic Minorities in U.S. Tech 2020. I don't want to go too hard this week on it. Like we pretty much discussed this last week, lack of diversity in IT. I believe it to always be topical. It's the platform of the show. However, this article more reinforced last week's CIO article about the topic, and it dwelled deeper into more focus on Silicon Valley and how it's even less diverse than the rest of IT and tech. Within it, it showed how Atlanta and Dallas-Fort Worth were on the rise when it came to people of color in IT. However, Silicon Valley hires far less people of color, and often it further explained, they often come from elite companies often have ties to elite universities who also have a lack of diversity. And it's basically just a pipeline of bringing people in who may have more of an advantage to being in those positions. than those who are not. Obviously, pipelines can be dangerous, as we all know. The pipeline that is often brought up is the one in the Black community, the school to prison pipeline, which obviously that type of pipeline is not good for the people who are adversely affected by it. And this one shuns, or I should say, is rather not inclusive of people of color. So that's also missing for those companies, in my opinion. But I like to discuss it and kind of get to your guys' opinions on the topic.
So yeah, this is something we kind of went through last week, right? Where it came to, your second and third order effects of how this makes it a lot harder to get to that other level, right? So here's how we think about it, right? So we say, okay, to go to support the HBCUs that are there for us, this, that, and the third, but they're not getting hired on with that on their resume, right? You have whatever it may be, A&T, or whatever it may be, state that may be an HBCU, and people see it on the resume, and it's automatically thought, okay, well, it's not the MITs, it's not the Harvards, the Yales, that they're not allowing a lot of minorities into. So this is where that comes from with the second and third order effects. It's not just a matter of, okay, because you know it, you should automatically get the job, but it's one of those things where they like to see certain things that just look good. You know what I mean? And here's the thing: when it comes to these IT companies, they're definitely looking at it. I can remember several years ago, I want to say it was IBM, people that were going to University of Phoenix at the time, that was considered a diploma mill. They were just like, if you have your degree from University of Phoenix, we are not even looking at you. You know what I mean? It was one of the things that's just one of the policies they had. But it's hard, right? Because even with going to the schools, there's different things behind that. And like you were saying, Ryan, we're not going to get too much into the politics of that, or the social inequalities of that, or whatever it may be. But it's even hard for minorities to get into some of those other schools. And there's reports out there on that as well that show it. So it is something that's going to be. I don't have an answer for how you overcome it personally, right? I know it's an issue, but I don't have an answer for it to say, okay, well, maybe I can't tell a private organization you should hire from HBCUs. You should hire from people that may not have the Yales, the Harvards, the MITs on their resume. It's just not something I can really do on my own.
Absolutely. That's like, there's only so much we can do as, like as civilians are trying to, trying to influence some executives' decisions. I think, as far as like us being on our platform, I like that we have this platform here. We can try to bring light to, people of color, Black people, Native Americans, others that aren't represented as well. And the fact that we can be like a little bit of a voice for people out there that are having these issues. And, maybe one day, our podcast will come across some CEO, like some CEO somewhere will click on it and be like, hey, I realize that people of color aren't represented in my company, that maybe we have to look at how we are hiring people and how my recruiters are like researching and identifying candidates for positions. And as well as like, I think a lot of it has to do too with people that are already there. They typically, I think a lot of hires are from like referrals, people that are on the job and they already know somebody that oh yeah, I got this buddy I went to college with, MIT, we're all MIT graduates. I can give you his resume, his or hers, and then, find a job for them. So I think initially if we can, find a way to get these qualified individuals in the door, and it can maybe start becoming like a snowball effect where maybe they can start referring people, their friends, fellow graduates from HBCUs, that can kind of like I said, snowball the effect and get more people in the door. But at the same time, I'm sure it's a lot to do with the recruiters themselves and how they have their pool of people that they pick from, and maybe they're looking for keywords when they do like jobs, candidate searches through job resource sites. So it's a tough one. I don't know if there's like Shannon was saying, I'm not sure there's really like a simple answer, something that, just do this and then that'll take care of the problem. and we just got to keep an eye out, and we have to call out people too, as far as identify maybe people in high positions that are kind of blatantly, targeting minorities, are like not allowing them to progress or get opportunities within the company. And I'm sure if we do enough research, or people do enough research, and they can find the companies that are disproportionately hiring, when there's plenty of opportunities, when they have if they have 100,000 people of color apply for a job, and none of them get it, then it's definitely an issue there. It's hard to get that data.
But you brought up a good point though, Levon. You brought up the buddy system, right? Like, hey, I know somebody, let me slide that resume over. Like that's one of the things that actually contributes to it as well, right? Because when you look at these people that are in these higher echelons, right? So let's think about it. These are usually older white males, 55, 60 years old. When they were going to school 40 years ago, right? They went to school with a lot of people that looked like them, right? So that's how the buddy system works.
Right.
Like they're the school at the time that they were going may not have been as diverse, right? So that just keeps playing itself out with the buddy system. That was a good thing to bring up right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely plays into it. I just know that, even from my own personal job and other ones, that a lot of people, get the job because they know somebody. And I think I got my job from a friend of mine that, recommended me for the position. And so that's how I got my that's how I got my foot in the door. So it's kind of interesting that it works out.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the topic of the referrals, and it kind of falls in line with the sponsorship, right? We need sponsors. We need people who are able to look at the resumes and look past what somebody's first name may be and things of that nature, and then just hire based on merit, based on giving somebody an opportunity to showcase their talents. So I agree with both of those concepts, and I think it kind of all that's the glue that ties it together. Or those are two analogies that don't go together. that's what makes it work.
So topic 2, all right, Amazon Sidewalk, right? So this is actually something that it was actually first announced through them back in September of last year, right? And so what Sidewalk is, it's kind of a new kind of a wireless network that lets your home capabilities, like your Rings and your Echoes, get a little bit of a longer range to them, right? But what it is it kind of does it by sharing your network bandwidth with other devices, right? So not necessarily yours, right? We hopefully all set up our wireless networks to be secure, right? Every device that I want to connect to it can connect to it, whether it be, through this SID and this password, or, different types of encryption. But that's kind of where this kind of goes out of the box a little bit, right? With this Amazon Sidewalk. And so what you run into, and there's some pros and cons to this. So like me personally, I'll tell you from my personal experience, I don't have any of those types of devices in my home, right? They've always worried me, having an Echo or something like that. Not that I'm not following the law, right? I'm law abiding.
Of course. We all know that. Or do we? No.
It's one of those things where it was something that me personally, I was never comfortable with. Like I've even had it to where my wife would get, she got as a gift one year, like an Amazon Echo. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to set that up. Like we're not going to have that in the home. Now, again, pros and cons, right? The pros are, let's say for instance, you have some type of wireless device that you're using, right? That's far away from your router. So by doing this, it kind of gives you the ability to have more range from your router and be able to have your devices used better than what you anticipated for the placement in your home, right? For your network. And everybody wants that, right? Everybody wants everything to work all the time, perfectly, 100% of the time. Now, with that being said, now there is some downside to this. This doesn't act as a replacement to your home Wi-Fi network, right? That's not what this is. As a matter of fact, the bandwidth, so Amazon says the maximum bandwidth, I think they said was 80 kilobytes per second or something like that, was what it'll do, because it's just taking a slice off of your home network. It's not going to use up everything that you have to use it, right? And one of the other cons is privacy, right? So people worry about, oh, well, if it's doing that, like it's tracking this, that, and the third, it's tracking, my Tile device that I may have on my dog, you know what I mean, to know where my dog is at and things of that nature. Now, As is always the case, right? These companies always say, "Hey," and this is what Amazon says on this. They say, "Hey, we don't release broadly the information for this, right? It's not one of those things where it's we don't release it to any legal or I don't want to say legal, but any law enforcement organization just to do it, right? There has to be something specific that they're looking for, some type of warrant, you know. But they're saying it's not going to be out there for everybody, you know, to just see and do whatever. So it's one of those things where there are pros and cons. We live in an age of we want that convenience, right? You know, damn security, make it easy for me to do. You know, I mean that's really what it is. That's how it is, right?
It's the truth. Yeah,
That's how we all live. But you do have to be careful when it comes to stuff like this. But that's just my stance on it. So like, what is your guys' stance on this, right?
Yeah, so it's like I think that's pretty interesting. So I need to make sure I actually, because this is the first time I'm really trying to. I'm kind of new to this Amazon Sidewalk, but it seems like so. Let me make sure I understand this. So essentially, it uses your Wi-Fi to pretty much give other people Wi-Fi or like some sort of connectivity to the internet.
So
Basically,
your
like you're sharing
Wi-Fi is kind of the source
access
point,
point.
but what it does is it has all your other devices like your Ring and your Echo. They kind of act like a
Oh,
bridge, kind of
okay.
like an extender, right? So like they kind of act like
Right.
extenders to other devices. So if I have, so for instance, my router is in the basement, right? But I have an Echo on my middle floor,
Hmm.
right, which will kind of act as a bridge. But then I have a Wi-Fi camera or my doorbell camera is outside a little further away. So now it doesn't have to reach all the way back to
Right.
my router. It just goes to the Echo that kind of acts as a bridge, right? Because it's acting as kind of a mini router type thing, right? Um, to kind of
Yeah.
extend out how far it goes. Now, the thing with this is this will extend like this can extend throughout a neighborhood, right? So like if I have a Ring doorbell, my neighbor has one, the neighbor after that, so like they can all communicate with each other to kind of give
Oh, wow.
that extra little oomph.
Yeah. 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 That's a really fancy product right there. I'm, I'd say I'll be like a little, I'd be a little cautious of like,
And it's an update.
I
And
can
that's the thing, it's
understand
just an
people want,
update, Levon. Like they're going to do an over-the-air update
yeah,
for these devices, you know, to make sure that that's something you can
yeah,
opt out of it, right? So that's one of the things you can opt out of
right,
it. But by default, it's going to enable when they do this update. So if you're not paying attention or you don't know, like you're all of a sudden just going to have this happening, and some people just for that
right,
security conscious people anyway.
right. Yeah, yeah. I I definitely understand people would be concerned. I mean, as far as it's I'm sure Amazon will go through the steps to lock it down and make sure it's secure and all this. But I guess essentially people will be kind of tapping into your connection to get some, for their sidewalk connected devices to
Right,
be
they're
able
taking
to
some
just
of your
like,
speed, right,
oh,
from what you pay
right,
for.
right,
And that'll piss
right,
some people off
exactly.
too, right? They'll be like, "Well, no, don't you shouldn't have some of what I'm paying for." You know what I mean? If I have a good,
Yeah,
internet package at my house and my neighbor has a terrible one, like they shouldn't benefit, right? Put forth
right.
your own money.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, because I'm actually going through this right now. Actually, I maybe made too many downloads or had too many downloads this month, and I'm getting creeping up on that, getting over my like 1 terabyte limit for the month. Um, because I think I got the new game system out last year, and I had to download. I got to get the updates,
Just
all this kind
remind
of
me
stuff,
to replace your
and
machine. Just remind me.
And so I had to get some updates and re-download a couple games here and there, and I think I kind of pushed the limits a little bit. But I'm thinking about this in that respect as well, as if somebody's kind of tapping into my internet, and I'm sure the devices, especially the IoT devices, don't use a lot of bandwidth, a lot of data, but even just things here and there can add up, especially if I don't know if you have a bunch
Right,
of neighbors, if you're in
right,
like a apartment building, and all of a sudden you got like 50 neighbors kind of connecting to your stuff,
right.
pulling data. It can might be able to add up. And obviously with the security concerns, people kind of tapping in. I'm sure somebody out there can figure some kind of way to kind of use that
For sure,
maliciously.
for sure.
But
And the white
um,
paper that Amazon has on it, I mean, they go into all the encryption stuff, right? Like, no, it's encrypted like this, and it'll be
right,
safe, and but still, it's one of those things where
yeah,
if somebody wants it, they can get it if they want
yeah,
it
yeah,
hard enough.
right, right. If they're willing to spend the time to look into it and try to figure it out, I'm sure they can get in. But it's it's and also it's dependent on maybe I know we're kind of talking about if it's worth the security versus the functionality type thing. That's always like a little balance, and depending on how what you're actually trying to protect. If you're trying to protect somebody from accessing your Ring doorbell, or trying to protect somebody from connecting to your Echo, things like that. I think it's people may decide it's not worth the risk, or it is worth the risk, depending on how secure or how concerned they are about those devices being compromised. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, this is Skynet.
Yeah.
Even Amazon describes it like that. They say it's an Internet of Things, or IoT surveillance ecosystem aimed at the domestic market and powered by AI. So I mean, come on, that's Skynet and Big Brother all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
I get why they're doing it though, because I own some of these devices. Like I love my Echoes. Like I talk to them, they play me music. Like I understand it's an inherent risk, but you try to mitigate risk as much as possible. But like I don't have a Ring doorbell anymore. I have a Sky Bell. It came with the house, right? But the way that builders build houses now,
yeah,
the radiant shielding and the better construction materials to keep the AC in and the heat out. Sometimes the doorbell did not work, and I had to keep calling the company out. And they kept saying it was because basically the doorbell couldn't catch a signal. So what they had to do is they had to install a Wi-Fi extender right there on the outside of the doorbell on the inside of my house just to give me the proper signal. So I get that Amazon is trying to mitigate that because a lot of Ring devices and things of that nature have those issues. But then it's the mesh surveillance that gets me. That's a far bridge to cross. Like people can see when I come. Like if this triple, it has 3 layers of security, so it's really secure. I get that. But if they were to be breached, like you said, I mean, someone can literally scope out the entire neighborhood. Like it's cool
right.
that this can potentially help people. It can help them, find their pets, their car keys. It can save a life. But what are we giving up for that convenience is the question. Like if this were ever be breached, how bad could it be? If everything's talking to everything, then everything's listening to what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything crazy, but if I want to have any level of privacy, I might have to start cutting off my devices and muting them and things of that nature. Because if my doorbell can talk to my speaker, you know what I mean? Like, there's problems there. The most part I did not like, and Amazon, feel free to sponsor us if you like, but was the automatic opt-in. I didn't even know this was a thing until I read the article. I received the email, but I didn't read it. I didn't interpret it appropriately. I didn't put my cybersecurity goggles on. By default, they toggle the switch for you, and it was already working in my home. So from here, I opened up my Alexa app, and I was like, this thing's already running. It's already doing its thing, and it's not even out of beta yet. They got
you.
Like I'm sure most people it's toggled on right now. You don't even know
it. And that's the thing, Ryan. So like they did send you the email, right? And in the article that I read, they were like, okay, you will be notified, right? But how many people are actually going to read it? So like even you having the cyber background that you do, you were like, okay, I see it. You know what I mean? And kind of glanced over it a little bit, right? How many people out there that have these things are just like, something from Amazon, terms of service change or something, and just delete it or don't read it, right?
Right, exactly. But if you would like to disable it, I have instructions. So if you would like to disable this toggle switch, open up your Alexa app, go to More, go to Settings, go to Account Settings, go to Amazon Sidewalk, scroll down, and toggle the Amazon Sidewalk toggle switch to off. Now, for them to bury it so deep, that also gives me pause. I had to search for it, and then I had to take screenshots so that way I can write that instruction message out.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a journey to try to get to that
exactly.
little switch. and that's maybe intentional.
Yeah, so was the messaging. I think the only reason that it was tripped up, because I found this through Forbes. Forbes had two articles because they thought it was so important, but it was blasted to the UK as well. And if anybody knows anything about, I think it's called GDPR. Is that it? I believe so. Where basically it's the European Union's contract to civilians, where you basically cannot be spied on. And then if you're a company from outside the UK, they have
Right.
to meet certain
Hmm.
European standards when it comes to the way they collect data from you. Uh,
Yeah, it's like eight of them,
so
I think, or something like that.
yeah, so somebody accidentally sent it to the UK folks as well, which
Right.
drew flags. Like even though they didn't push it to them, they sent them the same US email, and immediately the government stepped in and said, "Oh, wait a minute, what is this?"
Hold up now.
So again, just being overcautious. If like I love those devices in my home. Like I feel as though like you know what I mean. If I need to ask the weather, instructions, who sings this song, like a bunch of dumb stuff that is not very important to most people, I find entertaining. Like I love IoT stuff, but you're literally letting potentially people into your home by doing so, by letting these things collect data from you and listen to you while you speak. Because just because you don't say Alexa doesn't mean it's not listening. It's waiting for you to say Alexa. Hope
Right.
that it sets my stuff off just now.
Hmm.
It's waiting for that prompt, so that means it's always listening.
Right. That's the truth. I feel the same way. I'm kind of you know, I definitely have mixed emotions about the IoT. I guess like the I don't even know what you call them, but just like the listeners, just like you said, like
Right.
the echoes and the Google Mini. I forgot the name of that thing.
Is it the
Not the
dot or
Google
something like
version
that?
of it.
Or
Yeah, yeah, something. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, it's I have a couple of those in my house, and I think about it every now and then that somebody could be listening, or uh, it's possible somebody can hack it and get information from us. But same time, it's kind of a little bit of the balance between the security and functionality. It's just great to be able to ask it the weather and things like that, and set alarms and um, any kind of turn on lights and things like that. That's pretty handy. And I'm less concerned, even though it's a risk for sure that people have to judge for themselves. But there's a risk that somebody can potentially hack into it, or somehow even Google themselves might be listening in and try to get data about for their own personal gains and like advertisements and things like that. So it's something you just got to be aware of and kind of balance the risk and the functionality that it gives you. Because IoT is like it's the latest and greatest thing, and it's I don't think it's going anywhere, and it's probably gonna get even more um, more
be more
more
ingrained into our life.
more
Uh,
ingrained. Yeah, exactly. More ingrained in our lives as time passes, because I think everything's kind of good in IoT. You can doorbells and
refrigerators. You got
cameras
refrigerators.
and refrigerators. Yeah, refrigerators, stoves. I think probably stoves in there somewhere, and it's gonna probably some toasters gonna be popping up. You'll be able to check how your bagels are doing in the toaster remotely. Have like a little camera in there. Oh, I can see it's look a little it's getting a little brown now. I like it. Let me pop it up now from my phone. So it's gonna be something that we gotta be aware of. And as the technology improves, we also gotta make sure the security technology improves, and hopefully people are kind of developing means to protect and identify those risks and counteract any kind of vandals out there trying to
Right.
take advantage of it.
So speaking of people being taken advantage, that's a good segue. Um, I'll let you go ahead with topic three.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, one of the big things right now is ransomware. Uh, I came across an article, ransomware tops 2020 threat rankings by Sarah Cobble of Info Security Magazine, and she was mentioning that uh, in cyber incident response cases, ransomware makes up 1/3 of all the cases as of September 1st, 2020. So it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing especially over the recent years, and people working remote. I think a lot of people are connecting to their office from their home computer, laptop, desktop, and all these companies are opening up ports and holes, quote unquote, holes in their environment to be able to allow people to connect in and access data. And these holes are also available for people with malicious intents, so they can connect to your environment and load up their ransomware and pretty much have a field day. And all of a sudden, your whole enterprise or your essential data is locked down. You can't get into it. They're asking for a ransom. They got your data hemmed up, so you have no choice but to either pay them or hopefully maybe restore from a backup if your company is kind of focused on that and has the infrastructure available to back up the essential data to kind of restore it from where it was to a functional state. So there's some things that I think people should be aware of as far as mitigations to ransomware. I think one of the best things, first of all, is making sure you maintain patches in your environment. Things got to stay up to date. Got to update your client devices as well as your servers and even your infrastructure devices like the firewalls and gateways, routers, all those appliances. They need to maintain those updates, as well as, like I mentioned, backing up is really pretty essential too. I know it's like a lot of companies. It's all a balance game too. How much it costs versus like the risk. I think that's the thing. One things I learned in my cybersecurity degree. If it costs more than it, the recovery of the item costs more or less than the security of like securing it, it can affect your decision as far as how much risk or how much money you want to put into securing that information, that asset. So with backups, it can be costly because you have to maintain those backups and you got to store them appropriately and all this kind of stuff. So it can ring up a cost for the company, but it's very essential, I think, nowadays, is to make sure you have some backups and redundancy so that if something goes down, that you have some other fallback, some failover that you can spin up real quick and restore your services. So that's one of the big things, as well as I think one of the, I don't know the ranking on this, but one of the top things that people become susceptible to is just email, or just getting
phishing emails and stuff
I
like
forgot
that.
the phrase. Yeah, like a phishing, exactly. Phishing emails, and they see a link in there. They're like, "Oh, let me click on this link." It says it's from the boss, or it's some cool new. I don't know. It says it's coming from my bank account. And it says I had some unapproved charges. I need to confirm, and you click on some links, and it takes you to some place. You log in with your information, and somehow they get into your account, they get into your machine, and now they have an entry point because your machine maybe is connected to your company's portal or what have you. You're connected to your work center, your workspace, and now they have an entryway. They compromise your computer. Now they compromise they connect from your computer to another server, to another router within your network, and they kind of just daisy chain across the web, across the infrastructure. So something that you have to be aware of and kind of monitor those. I think those are like one of the easiest ways for one of the maybe most popular ways that people get into compromised environments, whether it's either they're not patching properly or they don't have a proper like gateway or a firewall security, like they're not restricting network access. Those are probably like amongst those three, with the email phishing and using that to gain access. I think those are probably the most popular ways people gain access and infiltrate these networks. So those are the things you have to be aware of. And I think ransomware is it's getting bigger and bigger. Ransomware is actually one of the things that kind of inspired me to go for my cybersecurity degree. And I think it's becoming like, I don't know, it's becoming just a big thing nowadays. And companies are paying the money. They're paying millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their data back. and it kind of motivates those people that are doing these acts to keep doing them because they're getting paid. They're getting their paper. So it's like, I think that's one of the things that they say, even like in this article, that or some articles I found that they recommend. Obviously, if you can, by all means, do not pay the ransom, because first of all, it's gonna inspire them, and they are getting funded from you to keep doing it, and they could pay for all their devices and resources they need to keep the process rolling, and as well as it's kind of like you don't really know who you're giving your money to, and if they're really going to give you what they say they will once you pay them the money. It's kind of like you're counting on them to follow through on their word, that they're going to give you the secret, the encryption key to unlock your data. So you got to kind of trust the bad guy's word that they're going to help you out if you give them the money. So it's a little bit of a balance.
It's become very lucrative, right? To mess with ransomware, like just like you were saying right there at the end, right? These guys are making money hand over foot, like they're going after local governments. You know what I mean? Like cities are brought to their knees, like, hey, pay us this much if you want this information back. And it's one of those things where you would think, right, after seeing, like, you had Target a few years ago that had issues. I can't remember what he was. I want to say it was down in Texas. I could be wrong on that. They were just brought to their knees. Hey, pay us this much, or for you to get your information back. This is where communication from the IT department to like these CEOs and these stakeholders. This is where it comes into play, right? So we can sit up in a meeting and just give the nuts and bolts, right? And say, okay, well, this protects this. If we use this system, this, that, and the third, you got to make the point to them when it comes to money, right? That's what they understand, especially a CEO. Right? Like, okay, if you lose this information, you're going to get a fine, right, from the government. They're going to fine you this much because you didn't protect it appropriately. And you're going to lose customers because they're going to be like, you don't know how to protect your information. You bring it to them like that, all of a sudden your ears perk up, right? And they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to do something a little bit better, right? Because like you said before as well, it's the benefit, right? What's the cost? What's the cost of this? What's it going to cost me? Is it worth it, right? If my child has a little $2 toy that they're playing rough with, I don't care so much. But if they start banging on a PS5, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, you know what I mean? Dollars with that $2 versus a $2 machine. So yeah, that ransomware it is very lucrative nowadays, and I can guarantee you, there's a lot more attacks out there that we're just not hearing about, right? And that were unsuccessful, right? Which is a good thing. But if people were to hear how often those attacks are attempted, I think they'd be very shocked at the number.
Right.
Yes. Definitely crazy.
I think that's,
I was gonna say, it's
go ahead,
crazy.
Ryan.
So,
what you think about it?
If you look at the news recently, so you have Capcom, right? So Capcom, for those who don't know, is a video game company that made Street Fighter. They made Resident Evil. I mean, Onimusha, like a ton of games. That's right up my alley, right? It's not a game podcast, but I talk about games all day. They were hit by the Ragnar Locker guys on the knife. They say basically, hey, we got a terabyte of your data, and we will start to leak it if you don't pay us 1.1 billion yen, or the equivalent of 11 million US dollars. Capcom got in front of it and basically announced to the world, hey, we've had a data breach. They didn't go into great detail, but the Ragnar guys immediately started leaking information, and then on the 11th, they bust the floodgates wide open. They lost PII for customers to include 350,000 items. They lost customer support data from their help desk. They lost the North American Capcom members' information to include names, birthdays, emails, address. And they also lost a 4-year projection of their calendar, which for those of us who follow video game news, the calendar is important because it's what dictates your E3 presentation. It's the Game of the Year awards. It's the trailers that you hold back until you can give them out for mass consumption to get people to want to buy your games and to get shareholders interest and cause the stock prices to rise. They lost 4 years of that. Now they could move these games around, they can move the dates around, all that good stuff. But we know what games are coming out and a pretty good idea of how long they've been in development. So they lost a lot of pomp and circumstance along with all this customer data. Luckily, no credit card data was stolen, at least not to anyone's knowledge. A third party vendor held on to that point of sale information, and basically they were protected, but all of Capcom's PII was not protected, at least not good enough.
Wow. Yeah. That's like it's becoming like such a big thing, and I think even besides Capcom, obviously there's been a lot going on, but I think one of the most concerning to me too is I've heard like a lot of like health centers and health maybe hospitals have been targeted as well, especially knowing that people are in need of medical assistance and the hospitals getting targeted, and they're a lot of their data and services are like time sensitive. They got somebody that's needing some medical attention or on an operating table, and all of a sudden the systems go down that they need to process something, or they need to, I don't know, research some information to help a patient. All of a sudden that information goes down, or even if the patient's data gets leaked out. I mean, that's a lot of
well, the PHI,
PII,
like the health information, yeah, that is very valuable to some people too, right? Like when it comes to pharmaceutical companies and things like that, like they would be very interested in what's going on out there, right? If they see a certain percentage that are admitted to a hospital or suffering from this, that, and the third, then it tells them, okay, hey, we have something for that. Whether we charge more, charge less, or whatever it may be,
right?
That's very valuable to them, right? So, especially the medical community, very much so.
Right. So that was WannaCry, right? What was that? What year was that? Like 2017?
Absolutely.
Where WannaCry hit the like most of Europe. Or I think it was like the National Health Organization or National Health Agency. I can't remember which one it's called. But they lost, I think, 200,000 systems in 150 different countries or something like that. I wrote a paper a long time ago. But what blew my mind about WannaCry was in some of the articles that I read, WannaCry has some of the best customer service than the actual like when because they paid. Like a lot of people paid because that data was so important. Like, I need to treat this guy, hurry up and give these ransomwares their money to unlock these files. And when they were doing so, sometimes files wouldn't unlock. At least this was in the article I read. And then they would call because there was a help desk number set up, and they would talk to the ransomers and say, "Hey, I couldn't get this thing to unlock," and then they would unlock it for them. Like, that's not typical. Most cases, you pay the ransom and they keep the money and they still release the data, or they keep it forever. But it's so lucrative. Like, they had people on the help desk. Like, yeah, we want them to keep paying, so we're going to help them unlock these files as they pay us their money. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, and it's so I don't know, it's so concerning. It's like, I think a lot of companies don't invest a lot of time or effort into like securing. I think security is a lot of times is a second thought or like a last thought of a lot of big companies. It's just like, oh, let's get the stuff working, let's get it like functioning smooth, and make it quick and make it really available for all the team members, but they don't really consider the security aspects of it and leave themselves open. And especially like people, companies that have dated software and they're still like on, they're on Windows 95, and they got I don't know, they got some out of date software that's no longer supported, no patching,
right?
Things like that, I think, are some like the little things that can be done to help mitigate the risk. And it's just enough, if the companies just take the effort, the initiative to just try to secure the environment and look for these holes, I'm sure they can save a lot of money. And would hear less stories about companies being compromised, and a lot of times too, like I mentioned, sometimes it's just the workforce too. People just actually let in these attackers without even realizing it, by doing clicking on an email, or I think I read a story a little while back. I forgot what company it was for, but somebody had basically reached out to one of the employees of the company and said, "Hey, if you let me do this, I'll give you a certain amount of money. If you let me like connect to your network and upload this ransomware." And I think it was a lot of money too, but the employee was, was a good employee, was had some integrity and actually, you know, uh, filed information or like provided information to this person's intent to the law enforcement, whoever they needed to, and they got dealt with, and prevented the company from being compromised. And I think actually now I think about it, I think it was Tesla that was happening too. So I thought that was kind of interesting,
Right.
but
Seems like you're trying to
who
debate me
knows?
into a segue.
Who knows what's
Good idea. Hey, listeners. Please remember that you can support this podcast directly by becoming members of the show's Patreon. Here, you'll be able to listen to the podcast 7 days early and completely ad-free. However, in these trying times, we understand that you may not be able to become a Patreon just yet. In that case, please listen to the show once it's available on free feeds, leave us constructive feedback, and share with your blurred friends and family. Thank you. Patch notes. Our new segment called Patch Notes. So if you patch your systems, you might not get as much ransomware. But again, Patch Notes, our new segment. So what I wanted to do was every week we're starting to see a lot more, especially this year. I don't know if it's just 2020 or if I'm just more in tune since I've been doing a lot of studying. But it seems every week companies disclose why they're patching our systems. So I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to take that and then we can kind of spin into a segment where we can talk about the latest and greatest of the week. And if these systems are being patched, which most likely they are, that's how patches work. We don't tell you what we're patching prior to creating a patch because then you would exploit it, obviously. But then just to give people a warning, so that way they update or they upgrade their firmware, what have you, because sometimes it's not automatically pushed to you like Sidewalk. So this week we have Tesla and we have Facebook Messenger for the Android operating system. So with Tesla, I read an article by ZD.net where a Belgian security research student in his PhD studies, Leonard Waters, which I'm probably butchering his name, discovered a hack on the Tesla Model X that allows you to steal it in minutes. So what the hack does is, or to say how he discovered the hack, is that you and me and everybody else can purchase the Tesla X key fobs off of eBay, or you could even purchase what's called an electronic computer unit or ECU from a salvaged old Model X, and then we can modify those to then steal the unlock keys basically from a Tesla X driver. So it's not as easy as it sounds when it comes to sneak up on somebody stealing their stuff, but the amount of equipment required is not that much, and the price is not that bad actually. So what he discovered was you can modify an older ECU as long as you're within 5 meters of the person. You can ensnare their key fob, and then you can, within 30 meters of the person, push a malicious firmware update to their fob, and then you can take your ECU with the key fob unlock codes from the victim, unlock their vehicle. Once inside their vehicle, you can plug in your ECU to the maintenance port in the Tesla Model X, and then you can then push the unlock code to your key fob and then take off with the car. So he said this could be done in a matter of 15 minutes if you're quick enough. Obviously, you also have to take into account how big an ECU is. Apparently, it fits in a backpack. So you would have to be extra stealthy if you want to make this happen. But luckily, he discovered this. He turned it over to Tesla. Usually, when you find a bug and you give it to a company, it can secure you a job, or it could even provide you a cash reward. It doesn't state which one of those happened in this case, or it could just be for his PhD, which would be kudos to this guy. But Tesla is now pushing this week anyway. Tesla is now pushing an over-the-air software update to prevent this from happening. So obviously, this is a crazy test case, but they have a firmware patch that fixes it. Before I get to the next one, any thoughts?
So this is a new one. So I thought I saw it's probably several months ago now. And it may not have been the same type of thing, but it was one of those articles I was reading where they were telling us to like wrap our key fobs in foil when you're inside your home. So like I want to say it was a video of a Tesla that was outside in someone's driveway and their key fob was in the house and it had to be within like 45 feet or something like that. And they had some type of device that would get the signal from the fob that would unlock the vehicle and allow them to get in and drive away.
So that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different. So that's called rolling code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rolling code is something that can be done to several different models of vehicles. So I'm not sure if Tesla is more susceptible to rolling code than others, but it's definitely something that you pick up when you do your CH. That you're supposed to get those key fobs further away from your vehicles, further away from your front door, because someone could roll up to your driveway and potentially hijack your vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the one I've seen too. Yeah, where they actually have like they use some sort of like cable line or something and like tap it to some sort of antenna where they're capturing your key fob and feeding it back to the car that's now parked out front.
Yeah, the one I saw
I think I saw
was
something like
footage
that
from
too.
the
Kind of
home's
interesting.
security camera in the driveway.
Yeah,
it's
right.
kind of hard
Yeah.
to. So I know some
Mm-hmm.
people manufacture key lockers that do the same thing. Like you put your keys in the locker, like you would put on the hook in the kitchen, but you put it in this locker and then it protects your vehicle from that. But it's so hard to do when you're not a single person. You know what I mean? Like you gotta opt in, get your spouse to opt in with it. You look crazy. You wrap yourself in foil. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
like
Right.
being in this field makes you look like a nutcase until you go outside and your car is gone. Then you're like, aha, I told you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's worth it at that point to be right.
That's right.
When I gotta call my insurance company up and be like, hey,
Right, but yeah, this hack was
Right.
there's been several different Tesla hacks. I don't think it's because Tesla necessarily is more susceptible to other vehicles. It may be, but it's a hot topic. So everybody wants to hijack a Tesla, right? They want to hijack the electric cars. So a lot of these bugs are being found because of it.
Yeah, it's like Tesla's the latest and greatest new thing, and everybody's going to be kind of like eyeballing them. And anytime there's technology involved, people are going to try to find ways to circumvent the protections and find little hacks and little
Plus,
things that they can use to get access
because
to
I
it.
want a Tesla.
So I know I want a Tesla one day.
I'm gonna defend them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Or maybe Tesla will sponsor us.
If you want to sponsor us, please reach out. give us all a Tesla to drive around, and then we can let people know how good they are.
We can quote unquote test the security and
for about 5 years.
Functionality. Make sure it works. We'll need about 5 years. Yeah, so, 5 years would be good.
The other patch note comes from Facebook Messenger. So I remember maybe last year, or it could have been the year before. This year has been so long, but I remember Android users gloating that my iPhone FaceTime was hackable. Like there was this vulnerability where someone could call your iPhone on FaceTime and they could listen to your conversation before you accepted it. It was huge article that came out about it. People were all like, "Oh my God, people are listening to me." But it was only affecting FaceTime, and I remember having my Android friends mock me because of it. Now the shoe's on the other foot. Like obviously this is a French case, but there was, make sure I get credit where credit is due. There was an article in the nextweb.com that a Natalie Silvanovich from the Google Project Zero she's a researcher. She found that you can do something similar to Facebook Messenger, but it's a little bit more fringe, right? In this one, to start the attack, the hacker would have to initiate a call and send a specially crafted invisible message, and then they could listen to the audio on the person that they called. But it gets real fringy because the vulnerability was only exploitable in special circumstances. Both the attacker and victim would need to have logged into Messenger for Android. In addition to that, the victim also needed to log into Messenger through the web browser. And then lastly, the attacker would need permission to call the victim, meaning they would already be the victim's friend on the list. So it is a bunch of hoops you got to jump through to make this happen. But she was able to do it. And Facebook is patching it, I believe, either last week or this week. And they're doing so. They announced it because it's in conjunction with their 10th anniversary of the Bug Bounty program, where basically Facebook pays people to find vulnerabilities on a regular basis. So, yes, Android users, you are hackable too, but in this case, it's so many hoops to jump through. I mean, it's probably not going to happen to you, but
so from what you were saying, you had to be logged into the browser
Right.
and the phone as well, though,
yes,
for it to be successful. Yeah, and I don't know if that's really the case, right? Like, and maybe it is, right? But I figure if you have it up on your browser, you're probably not going to have it up on your phone. If you have it up on your phone, you're not going to have it on your browser. But I don't know. Maybe some people need them both up at the same time. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it is a very fringe case, but if you can exploit it one way, perhaps they would have found a way to exploit it in a more reasonable way. Either way, I'm gloating. I'm letting you know right now. Welcome to the club, the eavesdrop club.
That's right. Right. That's all right though. I still prefer my Android over the silly little iPhones. Just just kidding. No, they're great phones. They all have their pros and cons for sure. I like the and iPhone's like probably one of the most popular phones out there, at least in the States for sure. I think globally, Android I think globally Android has a leg up just because they're kind of a little bit open source, I believe, and a lot of companies can use the Android source code and kind of use that to build out their own operating system, like Samsung, and I think there's some other companies out there as well, like OnePlus, and they all use like the Android, like a spinoff of Google's like base image or whatever you call it. But iPhone is definitely one of the top ones, especially in the States and other countries as well. But they got like a big following. There's a lot of people, kind of like it's almost like a cult. I think a lot of iPhone users. Once you get like a iPhone, you get the phone, you gotta get the laptop, then you gotta get the pad, and you gotta get the I don't know. You gotta get
that Apple ecosystem can get expensive.
Latest and greatest iPhone gadget.
Yeah, my whole family's in it, so I pay quite a pretty penny. As the kids get older, they all want the AirPods all of a sudden. But it's just the simplicity of it all, right?
Right.
So my last Android was a Note 3. I love that phone. Still my favorite phone of all time.
Yeah.
I kept it until it finally broke. I think they were on like the Note 8 or 9 by the time my Note 3 died. So I'd buy an iPhone real quick for a work trip. But then once you're in that ecosystem, it's like, it just works. So call me lazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think those I read something a while back, but the AirPods, I think they're like they actually make the most money for Apple right now than like any of their other products, from what I understand. Like they're like just hand over fist. They're making so much money from like everybody's getting AirPods, like even people that don't even have like an iPhone, because you can use them with other devices too. But They're just like
Accessories are like
such a
that
big money
across the
maker
board,
for
though.
the company
Like
right now.
even
Yeah,
for gaming systems, right? Like on the consoles, they'll tell you, "Hey, we're losing money on the consoles,"
yeah,
but when it comes to, the controllers, the headsets, the games, like that's where the money is being made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Except for your Mad
right,
Cats. Y'all remember Mad
right.
Cats? That's a
I
callback.
do. I do.
They used to make all the third party stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
used to get hot for no reason. You'd be like, "Why is my controller on fire?" I don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't understand.
Yeah, that's
Fucking Mad
right.
Cats.
What's my
I
control
think
about?
they're still around. I
Yeah,
don't think they make accessories like
yeah.
that, but I think they do something different. It's one of those companies where they do anything to survive. I gotta look into that now. What is Mad Cats doing?
I just pulled them up. I see it there. I'm making some like
They're
some
making
mice. I see like
PC
a bunch
mice.
of mice popped up as soon as I put in Mad Cats.
They're like, you know what?
But maybe that's like another
Whatever's
like a
clever.
variation of the.
Whatever's clever. We'll make whatever.
Yeah, maybe somebody took over the name. Or,
Like whatever it
yeah,
is, though, it's gonna overheat. Just put it out there.
yeah,
I kid. I kid.
yeah. They're making.
Before I get sued by Mad Cats.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I say doing a lot of PC stuff nowadays. That's kind of cool. They're like
Yeah,
enough
they
of the
don't want to
game and
mess with
stuff.
the
There's
consoles anymore.
too
Yeah.
many game systems out there. Which go to PC.
Yeah, they were I would say
Yeah,
the best third party though. Like if like I don't
of
know, like
course.
I bought my son a this is completely off topic, but I bought my son a controller um when the PS4 like two of them broke over the past 7 years, so not a bad product. But I bought him a third party, and even I couldn't play on it. I was like, this is trash. Felt like it was flexing in my hand. I was like, what? Why can no one build a competitive controller that doesn't cost an arm and a leg? Like, why I gotta buy a scuff or some elite controller? Why can't you just make me a
Right.
$20 knockoff like back in the day?
Yeah, especially as a young up and comer trying to put together a couple pennies to buy something, saving up allowances or mowing some lawns. I remember, yeah, I remember just growing up. Like my mom would give me allowance weekly, and I'd ask her like, "Hey, there's a new video game coming out. Can I get the allowance early?" And then, I just you don't have to pay me for the next 3 weeks or whatever. I gotta get this new game. It's like feel like a druggie on the street or something. Like, I gotta get that new fix on on the new game.
Nothing's changed. Man. My son did that to me. I think he wanted 2K21, but he wanted the Mamba edition. And he didn't have enough allowance left, so he was like,
Yeah,
"Listen, I give you what I got, and then you can not pay me until after Christmas."
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. That's how I would do my mom back in the day. Hey, I can pay for a hamburger today. I'll pay you back on Tuesday.
Got admire the hustle, man. It still works out. But
Sounded like
that had
Winkle
nothing
from
to do with
Popeye.
anything. I appreciate y'all going down memory lane with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that was a
That's
good
right.
show.
That's right. It's good times.
Obviously, everybody, please leave your feedback, questions, concerns, comments. If you're a Patreon, definitely leave us your questions, comments, and concerns. For all those of you who are listening on those free feeds, the easiest address to remember is www.theothersideofthefirewall.com. That's www.theothersideofthefirewall.com. That leads you to everything. It leads you to the Patreon. It leads you to social medias. It leads you to the RSS feed. However, you could, if this hasn't already happened, because we're talking in the future, right? Like Patreons get this tomorrow, hopefully, and then free feeds will get it a week later. Hopefully, by then everything will be sorted out, and you'll be able to find us on Apple, Deezer, Castbox. Man, the list goes on and on and on. Like I submitted to everybody and their mom, Spotify. So we should be everywhere, hopefully by episode 2 when it drops on the feed. So you can find us in all those places. You gentlemen have anywhere, or you want to point them in any directions?
All quiet on the Western Front over here.
Mm-hmm. This is what happens when you go cybersecurity. You get paranoid. So if you want to reach out to me, I actually created a Twitter, and that really shows you I've come a long way. I've never had a Twitter, so I'm tweeting at 37. at RyRy Security Guy. That's at RyRy, that's RYRY Security Guy, all one word. That's my Twitter account. I have not tweeted anything because I don't know how to tweet. But I will put these show notes in there with the not the whole run of show, but just like how to secure your sidewalk and those things on there from here on out. Just security tips. So please hit up the account. But I think that does it for this week.
Yeah,
All right. Well, I
absolutely.
definitely
I
appreciate you
think,
guys. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you,
um,
Levine. Thanks for bearing with all these
yeah, that was a great show.
internet issues I'm having currently. We will work it out. I'll find a way. But and then
That's okay. I appreciate that you're able to
I'm
connect with us over
6,400
the
miles away
long
from
distance
the
as
East
well.
Coast. So then add some more miles to where you guys are at. And then you have like, well, it's a miracle this is working. So we definitely appreciate you
Right.
guys. Thank you for all those who are listening, whether you be patrons or from the free feeds. I appreciate y'all. Please give us your feedback. We can only make the show better by receiving your feedback. That's all I got.
All right, y'all. Be easy. Be safe.
All right. Peace. Happy holidays.
Yeah, take care. Until we meet again.
Hey listeners, please remember that you can support this podcast directly by becoming members of the show's Patreon. Here you will be able to listen to the podcast 7 days early, completely ad-free. However, in these trying times, we understand that you may not be able to become a Patreon just yet. In that case, please listen to the show once it's available on free feeds, leave us constructive feedback, and share with your blurred friends and family. Thank you.